Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I am your host, as always, Ben Thomas. You look at 2025 and you see it as this massive opportunity for so many different industries and technology. One of the places that there's a massive opportunity, really maybe even the most opportunity, is in the world of security and access control. As we continue to expand into different vertical use cases and applications, and as so many industries now are able to ask questions and have conversations about the world of security. And you'll see some of these similar topics popping up places like ISC West and GSX, but wanted to have a conversation today to set the table and to have that conversation today. My guest is Fredrik Nilsson, VP of the Americas for Access Communication. Fredrik, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Ben, thanks for having me. Happy Monday. How are you?
Yes, to you as well. And Fredrik, I'll tell you, it's great to have you on because we think about Axis, right? And a lot of folks know Axis primarily as a security centric company, which you guys kind of proudly are. But you have tentacles in so many different industries across the world. So this conversation is really cool because we not only get to talk about some of that core nucleus security industry, but also talk about how technology is supporting some of the other places. So I'll tell you what, we'll set the table with this. When you think about 2025, what are some of the opportunities really that stand out most to you as a manufacturer and service provider in the industry?
Great question. I think there's two kind of main areas to cover here. One is the area of innovation. I'm an engineer by trade, so it's hard for me to not talk about innovation and technology. And the other one is market as a whole. And if you start out with the innovation, there is a couple of kind of trends that are happening in 2025. The first one obviously being AI, which is not new. It's been talked around for the last 2 years. And there's really a lot of things happening at the edge, and we're kind of an IoT company by heart. So all the cameras are getting much more intelligent with the latest chipsets, and people are figuring out what you can do really to bring a lot more value to the industry. And then on top of that, we have the ability to use those large language video models that other people have been developing, or more large language image kind of models, where we can use that training done by those large language models and kind of repurpose them for security purposes in different VMSs and really bring lots and lots more accuracy and value to the end customers. So I think that's exciting. It's not new. We talked about it, but it's really forming into something that's becoming very useful. The other area is cloud, of course, cloud, which is both a technology, and we've been doing that for a long time within Axis for 20 years, different cloud solutions, 1,000,000+ cameras in the cloud, but it's really forming to become better. And also it really brings different business models to our market as well. And the last one, which is a little bit more kind of technicality, but I think is really going to be impactful. It's a new compression standard called AV1. And if you're not in our industry, this is really formed together with Google and Netflix. Fairly influential companies know quite a bit about video streaming. And the fact that we can start using that in our industry instead of H.265, which never really took off because of licensing and complexity, really is going to drive value in this industry, which we're excited about. So those are the three main technologies. And then when it comes to market, who knows? Everything from tariffs to consolidation. You got to be nimble these days and kind of do the best things. We're a truly global company with a well-diversified supply chain. But after supply chain challenges 2 years ago, I thought that finally a normal year, and then all of a sudden it doesn't look very normal anymore. But we're long-term. We'll do what's best for the customers and continue to charge forward.
Well, you're right there. There's always a wrench that pops in, right? Whether it's a new technological capability or price points or adjusting and things like that. One thing that you talked about was sort of that world of AI, right? And now we're a year or two removed from sort of the big spike in the chat GPTs and large language models really coming out. A lot of those things existed previously, right? I think that sometimes people think that AI didn't exist before that, but it really brought it mainstream, right? So it brought that conversation at scale and at large to industries like ours, but we've reached this point of, I don't want to say maturity. We're not really even close to the point of maturity, but this level of comfortability, right? We as a security industry have a liability and an obligation to the buyer and end user to make sure the technologies work effectively, right? That they're easy to use and things like that. How have we reached that point with AI, right? Where some of the questions maybe are erased and people are really at a point now where they're trusting a lot of the technology, whether it be preventing false positives or even using it more proactively.
Yeah. No, as you said, it's not really something new. And in our security industry, we started to call what we call analytics for a long time, or video intelligence for a long time, 15, 20 years, is finally coming of age, and accuracy is becoming useful when it comes to object detection, detecting people, detecting cars, detecting positions of people, if they're laying down, if falling down, groups of people, identifying people in a correct way, moving identification from camera to camera. Um, so that's really coming with a much higher level of accuracy today and becoming much more useful. And I think that kind of moves into the value, because it's very easy to do a demo or a pilot and show how it could use. But to your point, Ben, to make sure it's easy to use and scalable, some of our customers have thousands or tens of thousands of cameras. If you start to have a lot of false positives, couple of them a day for 10,000 cameras, it's unmanageable. And I think we get into the point where for a lot of use cases, it's becoming quite useful today. And then you connect it with some large language model, and you further kind of filter the information with those. It's really starting to become well. But that also turns into, you mentioned ISC West. So how do we communicate those? And you need a live meeting with someone in a demo that you show what it is. And that's also another reason why we open up our Access Experience Centers across the Americas. We have 18 right now, where people can come in and try out the technology live, because you can only do so much in a quick demo at the trade show, or talking about it on the web and trying to make some nice YouTube video to show what it could do potentially.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, we'll stick on that point, right? You talked about ISC West, we talk about trade shows, partner events, things like that in the industry. And, one of the things that's been very obvious over the last few years is sort of this influx of kind of new blood, right? Whether it's from vertical use cases and applications, or integrators, installers sort of coming from different industries, like the traditional pro AV industry, trying to find their way in security. But you have these people who have come into the industry for the first time and don't always have the answers, right? They don't always know how legacy compliance standards are. They may not have the best answer from a standardization and compliance standpoint. How do you reach those folks that are, I would say, newer to the industry, especially at shows, and especially at some of these partner events?
No, security is an interesting market. First of all, it's a growing market, and growing market attracts a lot of new talent and a lot of new companies, a lot of new technologies, because there's more money being spent all the time, whether it's retailers or education or city surveillance or different kind of applications. And there's a lot of newcomers, both when it comes to companies and when it comes to customers. Um, if I was an end customer, an integrator coming into ISC for the first time, we would be totally overwhelmed, because you walk around on the show floor and 900 companies showing pretty much all the same thing and saying that they're the best. Now, where do you start?
You said it. I didn't say that, by the way.
Yeah. You start with the big booths because they're probably the biggest, or you go to the back of the room with the smaller ones because they're up and coming companies. And really the main benefit, I think, with ISC West, East, and GSX is the networking. So aligning, going to some of the seminars, network with other people, get to know other end customers. If you're an end customer, there's great user groups, there's great seminars being held, there's great dedication to form your own experience, or to tap someone who's been in the industry for a while and let him or her walk you around a little bit, or set up a breakfast. I wish I can go, what works, what doesn't work, because it can totally be overwhelming. But all that said, all these trade shows, I like them. They're fantastic for networking. It's a very friendly, nice industry where we are here for a bigger and greater cause of, as we say at Axis, innovating for a smarter, safer world and make things better. So networking with partners, networking with technology partners as well, to see what they have come out with, and also with competitors. We're all here for the same things, and sometimes competitors do things better. So let's chat with them and figure out what they do. And sometimes we partner up with competitors in some application. Yes, for the greater cause of making the world safer and smarter.
Yeah. Well, Fredrik, you talk about partnerships, and there may not be a time in the industry where partnerships are more relevant than they've ever been, right? Because especially as we talk about the expansion of our industry, you mentioned some compression standards from folks like Google, and being able to pull in some brand recognition from other industries or some familiarity from other places. It really is one of the things that helps kind of ease folks into the industry for the first time, because they say, hey, I may not have ever heard of Axis, but I know XYZ company that they work with, which means that ecosystem works with maybe my existing check-in standards or my existing IT infrastructure. How important are partnerships to kind of the advancement, not only of the company as a whole, but the advancement of the industry?
I think it's very, very important because there's very few vendors, manufacturers like ourselves that do all the components that the integrators and end customers need. And sometimes in a lot of installations, we just do the cameras, and then we have VMS partners like Genetec Milestone doing the VMS, and then you have a switch vendor that we need to be compliant with IEEE standards. And then there's server storage manufacturers. Then there is um, other manufacturers of other adjacent system like intrusion that it needs to work with as well. And then you need to have an integrator who's well educated and trained and certified in all those technologies to then front the end customer say, hey, here is our little ecosystem of 10 partners who can make your company here smarter and safer as well. And that could be a little overwhelming for an end customer. Say, okay, so which piece are going to buy from which companies? And in that sense, it's really important that you have companies that are dedicated to take those partnerships seriously, both from a technology and from a relationship perspective. Sometimes we compete, sometimes work together, but at the end of the day, we always want to do the best job for the end customer there. So those are essential. And if a company stands up and say we can do everything ourselves, sometimes that's a great solution for an end customers. But how scalable is it? And are you now going to get stuck with an infrastructure and a vendor that you can't get out? And you have a commitment for many, many years for that vendor.
Well, I love that you even bring that up too, right? You talk about sort of the importance of that specialty contractor, integrator, vendor. It even jumps out use cases in places like healthcare, right, that are susceptible to things like HIPAA compliance that aren't always normally applicable to facilities management or security, right? There are obviously individual standards across different verticals, but out of curiosity, I mean, what are some of those places, even as Axis, where you're seeing use cases and maybe some new vertical markets applications? What are some of those that jump out to you?
So it's interesting. First of all, um, we onboard a lot of new employees, and I always tease the ones that have not been in the security industry. I said, "Have you starting to look for cameras everywhere?" And they want to rate their ad. And I said also, then next question, I said, "Do you find yourself annoying your family because you start pointing out access cameras everywhere?" It's like, yeah, absolutely. So cameras and video surveillance and access control is not as prevalent, or at least you can't see it when you walk around. You see the swipe at the doors is everywhere, whether it's in education, whether it's retail, whether it's in airports, whether it's city surveillance, whether it's at schools, higher ed, hospitals, absolutely everywhere. What's interesting though is that in our industry, of all the money is being spent in those kind of business environments, 80% is being spent on manual labor, whether that's installation, monitoring, or guarding services. And typically that's a very high number compared to most other industry that are kind of have a lot of technology. So will obviously be a trend over the next couple of years to automate more and more things, to make things more safe and secure, and to make the humans in this whole ecosystem do more high value jobs instead of sitting in front of a gate and making sure people don't go in, they only go out at an airport, for example. So one more concrete example, we have the body worn cameras that we've been in now for a couple of years. And in the past, there's been a lot of great companies in this business where they had a closed ecosystem. It's their end-to-end solution, probably sold direct, and also on a recurring basis over 5 years, 10 years, very long. Great product, but they kind of lock customers in. With our open approach to the market that we've had and integration with a lot of different platforms, all of a sudden we are unlocking the potential in areas such as smaller police departments, correctional facilities, retail, healthcare, entertainment, where for safety or for improving customer service, they want to have body-worn cameras that can kind of tie into the overall system as well. So that's one great example of expanding with technology by a new business approach into areas that haven't been able to use that before, and hopefully making them smarter and safer as a business as well.
Well, it's interesting, right? You talked about all these different use cases, and one of the opportunities that we have is that it's no longer just a security play, right? So we're not always just selling to the facilities folks. Now, okay, we're selling into operations, we're selling into ESG, we're selling into IT, obviously still very much part of that. How have you seen sort of that buyer and decision maker profile even evolve over the last 2 to 3 years as well?
That's a great question. We basically define our markets in 4 different markets. The first one is security. The other one is safety, which is more like protecting areas and equipment. The third one is business intelligence, and the fourth is operational efficiency. And we discover a lot of partner companies and a lot of applications, sometimes with the same end customers, but different departments that have seen our cameras, starting to use it. Where there was one example out, it's all public on YouTube, um, with BMW for quality control in all of the manufacturing. Instead of having people inspecting the cars at the end to make sure all the details are correct, they have cameras and AI to kind of pick out cars that are not of the quality they want when it comes to gaps within the doors and the fenders, when it comes to welding spots, when it comes to equipment and so forth. So that is happening. What's interesting with that market is it's a totally new ecosystem of technology partners. It's a new end customer in the sense that it's a new division of the end customers we might have for security. And we're very excited about the opportunity to develop our products and the solutions and partnerships for that market as well. Because again, providing not as much for the safer, but for the smarter world, and making, more processes automated and more repeatable.
Well, Fredrik, look, I appreciate your time today. I wanted to kind of send one last question your way. Obviously, Axis is a massive name, and you're going to be at trade shows like ISC West, GSX, even shows like InfoComm, which a lot of our audience attends. And you know, how would you recommend that people kind of reach out to the organization for the first time, right? Is it through the website? Is it through email? Do you guys have a partner portal that people can look at? How would people who maybe have questions reach out to you guys for the first time?
Good question. We have a big staff here, yes, in North America of around 700 people. We have our Axis Experience Centers, 18 across the Americas that are within drivable distance for a lot of people, New York, Chicago, LA, Boston, et cetera. And of course, we have a website. You can reach us, all kind of chats, but we also realize that people want to build a personal relationship. So we have a lot of people on the phone series. If someone else want to call in, at least for our tech support line, we say within a minute you get an Axis employee online, and he or she are happy to chat with you and help you guide those things if you have questions. And we'll take those calls, thousands of them every month, and trying to help our customers and new partners.
Well, look, I can attest to this personally. Axis is a fantastic place to reach out to, not only from products and hardware and services standpoint, but just from an industry knowledge and education standpoint. So as there are integrators, as there are newcomers funneling into the industry for the first time, Axis is an incredible resource. And Fredrik, I know that you've played a large part in that, so I appreciate that. A big thank you for me and the industry back to you guys for all the work that you've been doing.
Thanks for the time, and thanks for all you're doing in your company as well, Ben.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Fredrik, again, one more time for joining us. And thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check us out next time on the show.